So my name is Heather Cohen. Next to me, you'll see photographs of the children of Boccabello AIDS Village. I went there in June with cameras for the kids and taught them photography. And so this is the exhibit that we created together. This is about 70 out of 500 photographs that the children took. So you're probably thinking, due to the title of my presentation, that I'm here to talk to you about the poor AIDS orphans in South Africa and my photography project with them and how great it was. And in a way, I'm going to touch on that a bit, but what I'm really here to discuss is what I learned about myself doing this project and how I think what I learned relates to you. Before I was drawn to teaching photography to AIDS orphans, I was first drawn to the question, how do I honor the meaning of my own life, and how do I honor the meaning of other people's lives? And I went from there. In this presentation, I'll be sure to put in some serious facts, figures, statistics, like the fact that there are 2.2 million AIDS orphans living in South Africa today, and that orphans are defined as children under 18 living without one or both parents. Another fact, many of these orphans have AIDS themselves due to transmission from their mothers at birth or through sexual assault. And these facts will have value to you in categorizing and summarizing a certain reality. But what has been of most interest to me is how the facts don't really add up and how our categories hinder us from seeing another layer of truth, that there are so many types of poverty, starvation, and violation. They can be emotional, psychic, or material. These facts that define our material reality cannot define or contain our core essence or our destiny. As you look at these children, these AIDS orphans, who are both creators and subjects of these photographs, what do you see? Can you see the burning intelligence, creativity, and desire to love? I see the brightness of their core essence, and it inspires me. These children, all of whom have grown up in poverty and abuse and have lost at least one, and at most all of their family members, and are also at high risk of contracting HIV in their lifetime. And I had to ask myself, why am I drawn to these children? And the answer was so simple. I saw a part of myself in them. I do not want to ignore or deny the reality of material poverty, nor can I deny the parts of myself that are starving in spirits, the places in me that have been violated or are grief-stricken. And additionally, I cannot ignore my own shining essence and the path it illuminates before me. Over and over, I saw that the statistics did not match up with what I saw in these children's eyes. And my task was to connect these conflicting realities, and I chose the medium of art as the unifying force to do that. I found out about Boccabello AIDS Village by watching Angels in the Dust. It's a documentary about the orphanage that I highly recommend you watch if you have a chance. I was so completely inspired by the organization and by the children that I had to go and meet them. As a visual artist, I decided that teaching photography would be a good way to give the kids quick access to an art form where they could express themselves and see immediate results. I wanted to offer them an art form with which they could express their innate creative energy, share their stories through pictures, and in the hopes that it would empower them the way creating art has empowered me. Boccabello means place of refuge, and that is exactly what it is. This is drawn from the vision statement from their website. Quote, "At Boccabello, our philosophy is to help anyone who needs it, regardless of background or age. If someone comes to us for help, we cannot turn them away, whether they are an adult, a child, or an animal. As a result, we are now home to about 1,000 men, women, children, plus a few dogs, cats, and snakes. Our goal is to alleviate poverty and be a model village of Africa. Everyone at Boccabello, the founders, the villagers, the students, and the volunteers, all work and live together as a family towards that goal. We are dedicated and optimistic. We face challenges, not problems, and we play while we work. Boccabello is a holistic AIDS village in that it provides food, clothing, shelter, emotional healing work, traditional medical care, education, and naturopathic healing treatments. It was founded by Marion and Cohen Clutie, who sold everything they owned to buy the first building and begin to develop the village. This is a quote from Marion Clutie, the visionary behind Boccabello, who is now 60 years old and grew up in the apartheid era. Quote, "When I was a child, I realized quite early that the life my parents expected of me, the material life, meaning I would grow up, get an education, get a job, then accumulate wealth, and then get my children and their children to do that repetitively. But I knew I didn't want that, and it confused my parents and educators because I had ability. They could actually put that somewhere if I didn't have any ability. But because I had ability and could do anything I chose to do, they didn't have a reference point for my choice, and neither did I. All I knew was that I had a deep sense that there wasn't enough sharing. And I didn't get the nuclear home, I didn't get the accumulation, and I had this deep sense that I had done it so many times before that I had gotten it and I could move on. I didn't know this thought was based on consciousness. I was just in it, looking out. And no one got it, but I didn't give up, and though I am glad I was pressured to finish my education, when it ended, I realized it still wasn't what I really needed. After I got married, had my children, had a wonderful job, I came to a crossroads and I had to make a decision. I was 33 years old. I had to consider my family, but finally I chose to follow my heart. I was optimistic that it wasn't about color or religion. It was about humanity. There is a secret in us, and it's called humanity. No one can crush you. They can put a stamp in a book and say you're different, but they cannot keep us apart anymore." End quote. I'm going to paint you a picture of what Boccabello AIDS Orphanage looks like and how it's run. Boccabello is a giant village set up in 3 main sections and is about a mile long if you walked it from end to end. In the heart of the village is Marion and Cohen's house, which is connected to the boys and girls dorms. The boys and girls have separate dorms and each have adult counselors who sleep there as well. About 300 children live in the central area. On the right side of the property is the teachers' housing and also the guest house for volunteers. To the left of Marion's house is the village. The village is made up of 600 men, women, and children. They live in small shacks with no electricity, heat, or running water. The houses are headed and owned by the women of the village. The village children come to school with the inner core children who do not have family living nearby or at all. Marion and Cohen's adult twin daughters live with their South African husbands on the property by the school. Each have their own 3 biological children, but also have several of the Boccabello inner core children as a part of their family. At the farthest left corner of the property is the graveyard. At least 70 graves of different village members lay there. It was amazingly peaceful for me to walk there with the children, and I did it often while I was there. I'm going to give you a very brief history of South Africa, which actually doesn't look so different than our own American history, because I believe it is so much a part of how Boccabello came to be what it is. The Europeans started coming to Africa in the 1500s for gold, land, and resources. Initially, the fighting was between the Dutch and the English for the control of the resources, and they did not even consider the African people. The Europeans had weapons, and although the Zulu people were tremendous warriors, they didn't have a chance against guns, and colonialism began along with the apartheid system. Apartheid, the word literally translates to separation. At its height, apartheid defined 19 different racial groups and assigned each a different value with different privileges in the society. The most privileged group were the Dutch Afrikaans. 19 years after Mandela and the ANC overthrew apartheid, South Africa still struggles with its divisions. Boccabello AIDS Orphanage is the natural antidote to apartheid, and I believe Marion and Cohen meant for it to be just that. At Boccabello, everyone belongs. All of Marion and Cohen's children and grandchildren live in and are a part of the community. There are children from all over Africa, from Botswana, Zimbabwe. There are children who are blind and deaf and autistic and mentally ill. But everyone belongs and no one is treated differently. It is, in a true sense, a community, each person depending on the others and the whole. I will speak a bit about the significance of education, and I'm going to start with a quote from Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. During apartheid, non-white South Africans were given what was called Bantu education. This meant their education taught them to be servants to whites and nothing more. At Botshabelo, they use an educational system called Brainline, which is a system Marion begged off of a group of white liberal homeschoolers. The majority of South Africans, however, go to government schools that do not allow sex education, are extremely mediocre academically, and where it's common for teachers to beat their students. I was shocked to see the Brainline education system that Botshabelo used. The lessons included how to identify healing herbs in nature, how to handle disputes with your friends and family, and most of all, how to look critically at your government and social issues. For example, they gave a real first-person example of a child who had been detained by the government during an apartheid protest. They also talked about a case of child rape. The stories were followed by questions. How did you feel reading this? What do you think needs to be done? The depth and intelligence of the Brainline education impressed me greatly and definitely left a few lingering questions about my own education. I also learned that of all the subjects Black South African children most excelled at and enjoyed, they were math and science. As a result of choosing their own educational system, Botshabelo has created a new class of citizens, an educated poor. Because of this advantage, many of the young people there who choose to leave at Botshabelo and work find they are very desirable in the job market. Some young people choose to leave, but many choose to stay and end up working there. We have an open door policy, Marion told me. This is their home, but if they want to stay here, they need to be productive and work. One thing she noted that the children who were there at Botshabelo's inception 20 years ago have not stepped up to take leadership roles. It is her hope and dream that the upcoming generation will step in and be ready to take over when she passes on. Most of the children at Botshabelo come from Eastern Cape Province and are the children of migrant laborers that work either in the mines or on farms for under $1.50 a day. Most of the mines are palladium and platinum mines, and some of these are run by the United States. Both palladium and platinum are used in jewelry, cell phones, and nuclear weapons. The rate of HIV and AIDS infections are highest in these mining towns, where 25% of the population has contracted HIV/AIDS, and the national average in South Africa is 18%. Often this is due to lack of education, migrants being separated from their families to work, and prostitution flourishing. Women are 5 times as likely to contract HIV than men due to biological and social vulnerability. Marion believes that all the children at Botshabelo are there for a deeper purpose, and I certainly felt that way myself when I was there teaching photography. All the children loved taking photographs. Originally, I intended to do a class only for teenagers, but what I found was that every child from 5 years old up wanted to try. I found their pictures to be so beautiful and evocative, and I began interviewing them as they photographed. I fell in love with their bright smiles, the soft rolling sound of their Tswana and Xhosa accents. I saw them drink in the love and safety of Botshabelo like the sun. Over and over in interviews, the words they used to describe their experience living at Botshabelo were safe, home, and family. And this is not to say that they didn't miss their biological families, because they spoke of them often and with longing. But at Botshabelo, they were never asked to give up any part of their biological families. In fact, Marion would never stop a child from visiting a family member if they wanted to, even if she knew that family member to be abusive. As long as the child wanted to go, she would allow them. Instead, she provided a consistent, safe place with art therapy, groups for healing and grieving, a strong sense of community, and self-responsibility. I don't believe in adoption, she said. I think it's important for people to stay connected to their lineage and their culture. Nonetheless, child after child cited Marion as their mother or their new mother. And Marion does not keep the children from their families, whether they are living or deceased. Both She and one of her twin daughters, Lee, are mediums and act as translators, sending messages between the children and their deceased parents whenever the children ask them to. I loved all the children I met, each in their own way, but I'm going to tell you, because I have to pick one, the story of Hopalong, a perfect example of how the facts of one's life do not equal the sum whole of one's spirit. Hopalong inspired me with his story, his grace, his charm, his intelligence, and his vulnerability. The size of an 8-year-old, he was 12 years old, with a radiant personality and a joke for everyone. Everyone calls me the box baby, he tells me. He had been raised for the first 2 years of his life in a cardboard box. His mother had been a prostitute who died infected with AIDS, and his father worked and left him in the care of an old woman who apparently put him in a cardboard box and never touched him, but fed him by holding a bottle in his mouth while sitting in a chair by the box, drinking. When he came to Bocchabello, he couldn't stand to be touched. He could not hold up his body. His muscles weren't developed. Through time and love, Marion and her family worked with Hopalong, loved him, took care of him, and now to see him, one of the most loving, connected, confident, coordinated, beautiful boys I have ever met. He loves skateboarding, and there's nothing about him that tells me of his past, but the sad look in his eyes when I ask about his parents. It's too sad to talk about right now, he told me in a soft voice. But the children do talk about their feelings in their art therapy groups and private counseling sessions with Marion. In South Africa, the beauty and the horror walk side by side. It is among the top 5 most inequitable countries on earth, which makes it extremely dangerous, and the rates of murder and rape soar. Yet has been the fertile soil that has nurtured 3 of the most influential leaders of our time, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and Bishop Desmond Tutu. And if I may add, Marion Clutie of Bocchabello to this list. These leaders are more than just famous people. They are people who have embedded their message in our collective psyche and inspired us to reach ever more deeply into our own humanity. I can honestly say, meeting the children of Bocchabello made me look at the way I define and limit myself by negative past experiences, have the courage to look at them, and turn those challenges into strength and inspiration for myself and others. I will end with a quote by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Your ordinary acts of love and hope point to the extraordinary promise that every human life is of inestimable value. Thank you.